Hello and welcome back to another Walking Dead video, and today I'll be talking about what if Judith Grimes had her comic death in The Walking Dead Season 4, or a death similar to a comic death. How would the absence of Judith affect the later seasons of The Walking Dead? How would the story change? So in today's video, I'll be exploring this what if, so let's jump right into this. And in this scenario, Tyreese wasn't able to save Judith. So when Rick and Carl find a baby carrier, Judith is gone. And from Season 4 all the way to Season 8, there is not really any changes because Judith is a baby. It doesn't impact the story. However, Season 9 onwards is where a lot of changes start to happen. And the biggest one is in Season 9, Episode 16, because there is no Judith. When Dog runs off, or if he does, because if no Judith, someone else has Dog, he ain't gonna run off. That means that Negan never goes into the storm to save Judith, and that means that in Season 10, Negan isn't on probation and he isn't able to leave the cell and go out help Alexandrians. He's still in his cell in Season 10, and because of that, Lydia would be in way more danger. And by the time of Season 10 Episode 4, because you do have Negan out there, when Lydia is attacked by the thugs, Lydia is probably killed when they end up going way too far. So in the next morning, Lydia is found dead in Alexandria. This causes some panic, and Negan would still be let out by Carol, but it wouldn't be more of an exile. People won't blame Negan for killing Margot because she is still around. And now because you no longer have Lydia, the war will play out way differently. Because there is no Lydia, you will no longer have Gamma be like, oh, Alpha's a hypocrite. Maybe Gamma will still turn because she is actually at core a nice person, but she ain't going to turn as quickly. And because there's no Lydia, when Daryl goes off to go fight Alpha, Lydia isn't there to save Daryl, and Daryl would have died and bled out in that building with Alpha. Or even if he survived the bleeding out, the Whisperers would have killed him when they found Alpha. And to make things worse, when the Battle of Hilltop happens, there'll be a lot more casualties because there is no Judith. When Earl gets all the kids together and hides in that shack, he's going to fail to take himself out, and he will turn. And because there's no Judith, she isn't there to make sure he doesn't kill the kids. And by the time everyone comes and finds that shack, all the kids will be dead. That would include RJ, Gracie, Jerry's children. They will all die because Earl would be there and he would have turned into a walker and killed them all. So our characters have now lost some of their heavy leaders. They have lost their bargaining chip, and now they have lost all their children, or most of their children, because some are still back at Alexandria. You would still have the Negan plot be the same once he gets out of Alexandria. So Alpha would still die after the Battle of Hilltop. But going in to the final episodes, or the final days of the Whisperer War, you won't have Lydia go and save Carol right at the end. So when Carol's walking that giant herd of walkers off the cliff at the end of a certain doom, there is no Lydia to pull her back, and Carol would have to sacrifice herself at the end of the Whisperer War, leaving our group with no Daryl and no Carol for the final two arcs of The Walking Dead. Moving in to Season 11, the Reaper arc would mostly be the same, minus Pope being killed by Leah. There is no Daryl on the inside. There is no Leah question her loyalty, and because of that, there's going to be a lot more focus on Maggie and Negan and them having to work together to overcome the Reaper threat. And without any Daryl, Maggie would probably kill off all the Reapers, making sure that they won't be an issue later on in the season. And going into the Commonwealth arc, it'll be very different. There is no Daryl becoming a soldier and having that rivalry with the Miltons and Sebastian. There is no Carol learning about the underbelly of the Commonwealth and finding what Lance is really like. It will really have to focus on the Pamela and Maggie dynamic, and them trying to force Maggie to join the Commonwealth and Maggie being reluctant to do so. And because there is no more Reapers, Lance can no longer use Leah to try and kill Maggie. The core story of the Commonwealth would be mostly the same, as it relies on characters like Connie and Kelly doing their research and the protests. It's just the wider look at the Commonwealth with Carol will not happen, and we will not understand how corrupt the system really is and how deep the corruption goes with Lance. Going into part 3, and Sebastian will still die. Lance will accidentally kill Sebastian and he will be arrested, but because there is no Daryl and Carol and our main protagonist Maggie is currently outside of the Commonwealth, Lance would never die. He would spend the rest of his days locked inside that cell in the Commonwealth. And then near the end of the season, when Maggie is finally able to get everyone back together and she leads an army or a militia into the Commonwealth, once they get into that train station, when Pamela picks up that gun, she aims for her biggest enemy, Maggie. And because there is no Judith, Maggie is now pushed out the way, so she is fatally shot and killed by Pamela at the end of episode 23. Going in episode 24, you no longer have any leaders for this militia, so characters like Negan, Rosita, Gabriel and Aaron have to step up to the plate and be the protagonists for the final episode. The episode will be mostly the same, as Maggie, Daryl and Carol don't add anything unique and are not the reason why the war ends. It is more of a Gabriel thing and everyone coming together, which ends the Commonwealth arc, and that would still happen without these characters. But when we get to the endings, there is no Negan reconciliation. Negan never feels like he's been forgiven, and Pamela and Lance would both still be alive and arrested. And no one takes up Lance's old position, leading the Commonwealth to have a lot of big issues in the near future when Ezekiel and Mercer take over co-governorship, because they do not know all this stuff that Lance has done behind the scenes. And the biggest change would be that Daryl never leaves, as he's already dead. There's no one going off to go find Rick, which means the events of Walking Dead Daryl Dixon do not happen. Laurent stays in the Abbey in the south of France. The Abbey never gets destroyed, and the Walking Dead Dead City never happens, as there's no Maggie to take Negan to Dead City, so the Saviors never get rebuilt. And this is what I think would happen if Judith died in season 4, and this is my scenario. So please tell me down below, do you agree with what I think would happen, or do you have a different idea of how this scenario will play out? But this is it for me today, so goodbye, peace out, and I'll talk to you later.